What is going on, y'all? Thank y'all so much for joining us. This is Ending the Stigma. My name is Chris Hennessy. I'm your host tonight. And if y'all followed along for any amount of time, y'all know that this show has evolved from. It's just been crazy to watch the evolution, right? So we've evolved from talking about everything justice involved, addiction involved, and we still talk about that. But the beginning of the show used to be justice involved, and now we're focused on addiction involved, human trafficking involved, homelessness, all that kind of stuff. Um, and I've been really blessed to have all kinds of guests from all walks of life, from the homelessness space to the addiction space to the human trafficking space. But tonight, my guest is really special. And it's because it's the first guest since my brother has died that we've specifically talked about someone passing away from fentanyl poisoning. So I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know how it's going to go. I really feel like it's going to be an emotionally charged kind of conversation. So if one or both of us ends up ugly crying, like just roll with it, y'all. Like just roll with it. And I know y'all will because I've had all the support from you. And this is the fourth season I've been doing this. Um, so I know I'm going to have the support, but anyway, I'm just kind of putting that disclaimer out there. So my guest tonight, I don't even remember. Like I was trying to remember earlier, like how the first time I saw her post or whatever. Um, but my guest tonight had a son who passed away from. Yeah, thank you, David. Um, Passed away from fentanyl poisoning at 19 years old. And let me just clarify something. There's a difference, and I've learned this over the past few months. There's a difference between fentanyl poisoning and fentanyl overdose. Fentanyl overdose is someone that, in my opinion, is actively using fent and overdoses on it. Fentanyl poisoning is someone who gets something that they think is one thing and it has fentanyl in it and they get poisoned. Like they were not purposefully doing fentanyl. So my brother passed away from doing Adderall. Jack, my guest tonight's son, passed away from doing a Percocet. We'll get into that here in a little bit. But there is a huge difference in that, in my opinion. So whenever you, and I've posted about this before, y'all, like you can call it fentanyl overdose, you can call it fentanyl poisoning. I just call it terrorism. And that is a hill I will absolutely die on. So anyway, it's going to be an emotionally charged night. We were talking about it backstage, and we're both like, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how much we're going to get into anything. We don't know how many tears are going to be shed. Um, but it's going to be a good night. So, y'all help me welcoming. Her LinkedIn profile says Brady Nathan, but she says Brady Harrison. So, y'all help me welcome Brady Harrison. It
Thank you
kind of
so
threw me
much.
off there for a minute.
Brady Harrison Nathan.
Brady Harrison
Welcome,
Nathan.
everyone.
Okay. Thank you for being here tonight. I really appreciate you coming out and just sharing your story of your son Jack. Um, I've done a little bit of research on the website and just seeing like he seemed like a really awesome guy. Like
He was.
so focused on helping people with mental health and then tragedy happens. So just like tell us about him. Like tell us like what he wrestled with, how he got into Happy Jacks, and just tell us his story.
I'm happy to.
Yeah.
Jack, as you know, is my son, who
Yes.
passed at the age of 19.
Yeah. And how
My
long ago
son,
was that? How many years ago was that?
that was 4.5 years ago, and
Okay.
I cannot even
Still like
fathom that four
yesterday,
and a
wasn't it?
half years have gone by, and I
Yeah.
have not physically seen my child. It like
Yeah.
rips my heart apart.
Yeah.
But my son struggled with anxiety and bouts of depression, mostly anxiety, and his head was like constantly spinning and spinning and spinning. And he figured out that painting and creating art was a way to channel his anxiety. So he would literally disappear. He'd like blast Mac Miller and just disappear into his painting. And as his anxiety progressed, his paintings got bigger and bigger.
Right.
Um, but he was home for COVID. He had just finished up or was finishing up his sophomore year of college. He came to me one day and while he was still at school, and he said, I have an idea. And if I could help just one kid not feel the same way I do, then creating Happy Jack will have been worth it. So I said, of course, go for it. And the concept was to create a brand centered around this Happy Jack world and the notion that it's okay not to be okay. And he basically designed the shirts and the apparel and all the merch with his artistry, and he started selling them literally out of his fraternity house, and it just blew up. And then on January, I remember this date, on January 9th, he texted me of 2020 and he wrote, "Mom, Happy Jack is back. I've never been so happy in my life." And 6 months later, he was gone. And it was taken from all of us. So, Jack started the foundation. His first week of sales, he donated $1,000 to the Child Mind Institute. I didn't even know what the Child Mind Institute was at the time. He had founded, their organization on his own. And I was just so incredibly proud of him that he was like wearing this mental illness like a badge of honor.
Right.
And it's very unusual for a 19-year-old to be so forthcoming about, this is what I struggle, but he wanted to let other kids know that they weren't alone.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
That's just the bottom line. And as you mentioned, I we lost Jack to fentanyl poisoning. He came home for COVID, unfortunately, and that does not bode well with those who struggle with mental illness.
Right.
And it was really a hard and dark time for Jack as he's, confined to his room like the rest of the world. And he continued to paint and paint and paint. And he launched Happy Jack literally out of the basement on June 7th. And I lost him July 3rd.
Wow.
1 month, not even.
And he came up, and I put the ticker up there. I'll put it up again right now. It's happyjackworld.com. Y'all go check it out and look at some of his designs. He has some really awesome designs. So let me ask you this. Like there's some designs on there that are F fentanyl. Did he come up with those?
He did not.
Okay.
Chris, 4.5 years ago, I didn't know much about fentanyl. And we never discussed it openly. We talked about weed and we talked about, pills,
sure,
I suppose, but he really wasn't even a pill kid. My kid smoked pot all the time.
Right.
But it was really not a conversation to that when we found out how he passed. It was almost like, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean? I heard of it, but I don't really, it was something. And here we are 4.5 years later, and everybody's talking about it. And it's
everybody's talking about it.
Crisis and an epidemic. And I can't believe how much has changed in 4.5 years with Narcan and fentanyl test strips and just the conversations around it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I had, I talk all the time. Like we're friends with Ben and Jess Owen. We fight monsters in Memphis, and they're our sister org, and they're our mentors and all that kind of stuff. And so following them, I'd heard a little bit about fentanyl, but didn't really know, much about it. And it wasn't until Eric passed that I really started researching it and went down all the rabbit holes of what it is. And realizing that it's in literally every freaking thing. Like there is nothing that is safe. And, I'm a former meth addict. Like I did meth from 2004 until 2008. We didn't know what fentanyl was. Like that wasn't even a thing, back then. And I am so glad. Like it's only by the grace of God that I went to prison and got clean when I did, because there's no telling what would have happened. You know what I mean? because it is literally in everything. And you don't, you hear about it, you see it on the news. Oh, it's coming across in tons or whatever. But I honestly feel like it isn't until you lose someone that you really realize how bad this shit is.
I
And
think
it's
it's,
up. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
is it, I say it's 7 out of 10 illicit pills contain a lethal amount, but I read even today a statement that said 8 out of 10. So
8 out of 10.
it might
And
have changed.
yeah, and I've read all kinds of statistics. Our bracelets say every 11 minutes. I've heard it's every 5 minutes someone passes away from it. The DEA website says that this stuff's being made basically like redneck meth in China,
Yeah.
where it's being pressed into pills. It's being mixed up. It's in a rigged lab or whatever. So
Mhm.
you may get pills in one batch in one bag that are fine, and the other, because it's not mixed right. So it's not even, you just don't even know what's going to happen. Um, and all of that, like, and I really feel like, like I said, you don't know until you know, and until you've gone through it and you start researching it. But I really kind of feel like the burden, and that's maybe not even a great word, lies upon us that have been through it to educate the people that haven't,
I agree.
because they're blind. They're blind to it. You don't know what you don't know. You hear about it, but you don't really know just how bad it is.
It's bad.
It's bad. It's
And the
bad.
reason why, I was telling you earlier that I speak on TikTok because it's a more intimate conversation for me to
Sure.
really be transparent. And I have to be honest, Jack taught me the art of transparency because I never,
Yeah.
ever, ever would have been brave enough
Yeah.
to start speaking and sharing my son's story. And I just can't believe how many of us there are. There
Yeah.
are comment after comment after comment. My son, my daughter, my aunt, my uncle, my dad. It's heart wrenching,
Hmm.
and we're from all walks of life.
All walks
And
of life.
I try and show my son his pictures, his videos, because I want anyone who's watching to understand that he really is no different than anyone else's kid. He looks no
Mm-mm.
different. He's
Mm-mm.
an extrovert. He lives this fearless life. And it could have been, I had one of his friends actually say to me, it could have been any one of us.
It could have been.
It's like Russian roulette.
It is. And most people, whenever they hear of fentanyl overdose or whatever, however you want to look at it, they look at the stats of 100,000 people a year dying from this stuff. It's not, and I don't know what the stats are on addicts versus non-addicts or whatever, but like Jack wasn't an addict, right? Like he took a pill at a party.
Took a pill at a
Same thing with
party.
my brother. I'm not excusing illicit dope use, but I'm
No.
just saying my brother we called him a pop-up user because he'd pop a pill if it was available, or he'd do a line of coke if it was available. And that's just being real about it. But he wasn't like strung out. He wasn't using every day, like none of that
Right.
stuff. And it literally, like, they're targeting, it's the biggest killer of people for 18 to 45 right now.
Yeah.
And so that's what's being targeted. Like they're putting it into pills, they're putting it into all this kind of crazy stuff. And it's not always the people you would think about, the homeless people living under a bridge that are putting a needle in their arm. Like that's not they are dying from it, but that's not the biggest majority. It's people like Jack and people like Eric who stumbled
And
onto something that had some stuff in it.
the craziest part was my son actually told me I worried too much as a mother.
Really?
And what do I say now? I
Yeah.
told you so. Like
Yeah.
I did worry. He was incredibly fearless, and I don't think he would have changed anything about who he was as a
Yeah,
person.
no, Eric wouldn't have either.
Yeah. And everyone loved that about him, that he was crazy
Yeah,
and silly and
yeah, yeah,
funny as hell. Everybody
yeah.
loved. He was just
Yes,
like magnetic, charismatic, you name it.
yes,
And he made a stupid
yes,
decision. He made a stupid decision that cost him his
yeah,
life.
yeah. And Eric was the type that was all like, "Oh, that shit's not going to happen,"
Of
whatever it
course.
was. You know,
Same.
whether it didn't matter what it was. Like and I don't know what he knew about the fentanyl crisis in America right now. Like I have no clue. But it was always like, "Yeah, that ain't going to happen."
Yeah.
You know, like, and everybody
That's
was like, "Bruh." But that was Eric, you know, and everybody loved him for it because he was just a
exactly.
nut.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. And it ain't gonna happen until it happens, you know.
yeah.
I I cannot believe this is my life, Chris. I'm gonna
I
be
know.
honest.
I know. I'm right there with you 100%. Like I say all the time, like, so it's November now. So Eric passed in March. So that was 7-ish months ago on the 8th. Um, if you had told me 8 months ago that this would be my life, that I would be actively engaged in the war on fentanyl and homelessness and all this other crazy stuff and just trying to raise awareness, I'd have been like, you are freaking out of your mind. I'm not going into the homeless camps. I'm not talking to addicts. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. Um, but then it's also hard to wrap your head around, and I'm sure it is for you too, is my brother's a statistic now.
But
And
don't you
that's,
also feel but don't you also feel like your brother, like Eric, his his life had such purpose. And I feel that way about my son. It's like I can't explain the short 19 years away any other way other than saying, you know, he passed for a reason, and or Eric passed for a reason, and we have to continue to speak because they can no longer.
yeah, I have mixed feelings on that, to be honest with you. I don't believe this is going to get a little deep, so just kind of bear with me. I'm a Christian, and so I don't believe, and the Bible says it's appointed unto man wants to die, and then after that, the judgment in heaven and whatever, all that kind of stuff. But I also don't believe that it was God's will for Eric to die from fentanyl poisoning. I believe that his life had another purpose, but I also believe God gives us free will to choose what we want to do.
Yeah.
So it's like trying to reconcile all that in my head is like this crazy spaghetti mess, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I don't even know where I'm at on it, to be honest with you. So I'm saying all this, but I don't know where
Yeah.
I'm at on it. But I also know the Bible says God works all things together for good. So while this was a tragedy with Jack, it was a tragedy with Eric. Look at what is coming out of it on our side and on your side. Like, you have continued his legacy with Happy Jack's World. You still have the hotline. You still have the hotline going. Is that right? Like the hotlines, I saw it on your LinkedIn
Yeah.
profile.
Yes. You know, I speak about 988 on a daily because there's so many people that reach out to me, and I'm, you know, while I'm, you know, my son was a victim of fentanyl poisoning, I am by no means an expert in
Right.
this
No, I
space.
know.
So
Right.
I don't want to give someone any misinformation or, you
Sure.
know,
Sure.
promise them they're going to be okay. So I constantly direct people to 988. I can only speak on
Right.
my experience. And I
Right.
have learned that, you know, everyone handles anxiety differently. Everyone handles the grief process differently. There is no one size fits all to solve anyone's problems.
Right.
I only wish I
Right.
could
Right.
give you the magic answer, you know,
Yeah.
to tell them how to fix their kids. But
Right. You can't.
no. Did Eric struggle with his mental health?
He had a little bit of anxiety, I think, but I think he was mostly okay. I mean, there was issues in his life with baby mama and the kids and all that kind of stuff. So he had some anxiety and he had a little bit of depression, I think. But I didn't really talk to him about it a whole lot. But and this isn't excusing anything, but I am not a phone talker. Like I hate talking on the phone. And looking back now, like I see that I wish I had spent more time talking to him and just being there. Um, but I honestly don't know if I'm being honest. I would say a little bit though, probably.
Well, I will be honest as well and say that Jack was very transparent and we were extremely close. And I
Yeah.
listened nonstop. And you know, Chris, it still didn't change what
Yeah.
happened. So I don't want you to believe that had you stayed on the phone with Eric a little bit longer, that,
No.
you know,
Yeah. And I honestly, like, I don't have any guilt about it. Um, I just see where I could have done things different
yes.
and just been more present. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But like my sister said, this is my sister. Like anxiety towards the end, he'd call her every night. Um, I don't know where that would have led if he had called me every night. I don't know. Like I just don't know. And I don't like I literally have to block the what if game off in my head because
It's very hard.
that's a slope I don't want to go down.
It's
You
very
know?
hard.
Yeah, I can like I have made a very conscious effort to block that off and not play that game in my head because I know where that's going to lead. You know,
Yeah.
I can imagine that's almost a debilitating kind of thing.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. It is. And, as close as these parents or siblings, believe that they are with someone and you want to believe that they tell you everything,
Yeah.
Jack's not going to come to me and say, Mom, I'm going to pop a perk later tonight. It's
Right.
just not happening. But he will tell me he has anxiety. He texted me that he was going to sleep over at the party. It wasn't safe to drive home.
Yeah.
There was, short of be gluing him to my body for 24/7, I could not have protected him
Right.
and change the outcome of that evening.
Right. Right. Not at all. So tell us about happyjacksworld.com. Like what's going on with that? Like y'all go look that up for real. Happyjacksworld.com. Like there's a ton of really cool merch designs. A lot of them were designed by Jack, right?
Yes, a lot of them were designed by Jack, the classic collection. So Jack had this business model, which I'm trying my very best to adhere to, whereas he wanted to drop, a new collection every month. And that's hard because now we only have a limited amount of designs that he left behind. So
Right.
a lot of what he created is not currently up on the website because, it does come down after a particular drop, but we will, drop something for holiday that I'll pull from his collection. But, the truth of the matter is that one day there won't be any more of
Yeah.
his designs to share. But if you could see, this is the Happy Jack logo.
Yeah.
And it was created in such a deliberate way. You could see this smile is crooked. And
Yeah.
Jack said to me, you know, it's I know it's very cliche to say, but it's okay not to feel okay. But he would say, sometimes he feels like he's living in the gray. He doesn't feel particularly happy, he doesn't feel particularly sad, or he can't really even put his finger on how he feels. And
Yeah.
this logo was his best way to explain how he felt.
Yeah.
So we'll always have this logo. This logo will
Yeah.
always represent my son and all of the kids who struggle with their mental health, regardless of what, other designs we attach or fix to anything
Yeah.
that we put out.
I love that. That's kind of like on everything but our hats now because we use Printful for our merch stuff and they don't have a way to do a secondary design on hats, but on all our shirts and everything. And this was made by somebody else. See the little sideways deuces? because
Yeah.
Eric was always going like that. So on all our logo stuff on the back, it has a sideways do. So on all our shirts, it has that. Just that nod to Eric on
Yep.
everything that we put out,
Yeah.
except for the hats. Just has that nod. It's just that it's not big, it's not huge, but
No.
it's part
It
of
was.
Eric on everything. Yeah, right. Like the same thing with that. Like just a little crooked smile. Like it's not a huge deal, but it is a huge
It
deal.
is. It is.
Yeah.
It's very, very deliberate. And he actually, his last tattoo that he got was on his leg. And they're two interconnecting circles. And one circle, you'll see a smiley, and the other circle, you see a frown. And in the middle, he colored in. And I was like, why did you color the middle portion of it in? And why didn't you just keep the links open? And he said, because I live in that gray space.
Yeah.
And that was his last tattoo.
Yeah.
So it's something that I'll always remember.
Yeah.
And to say for any of the parents in your audience, you know, I think as parents, we try to fix our kids, you know, when they're not happy. And I think I started doing that when Jack was younger. You know, I didn't really understand that he was struggling with his mental health. I just thought I could maybe buy something or change something and he would be all there.
Right.
And, you know, something as silly as like, well, maybe if I repaint his room or reposition his bed or,
Right.
you know, buy him an iPhone or something. But it like,
Right.
it's never, there is no fix. And it's something that you can manage and it is possible. You know, Jack's demise was not mental health. His demise was fentanyl poisoning.
Yeah.
And I do believe it's something he would have learned to manage.
Yeah.
But it's, I don't want parents to give up and I don't want them to think that their child's life is going to turn out the same way my son's life did, because it's not inevitable that will
it's
happen.
not.
But sort of throwing things at the mental illness is not going to fix it. And I learned that, I think, a little later than I would have liked.
Yeah. Because, you know, mental illness or not, anxiety or depression or not, there's probably a good chance he still would have taken the Percocet. You know what I mean? Because he was at a party and he was doing the things college kids do, and it was there.
The craziest part about it is that he texted me at 11:50, and that's when he told me he was going to sleep over and he wasn't coming home. And at some point between 11:50, when he was completely lucid and writing me these texts and sending me something through Instagram, like at some point he took that pill. And I don't know how quickly it affects the body. I don't know exactly the amount, the lethal amount that was in this particular pill, but it's really hard to wrap my head around.
Yeah.
That I had just spoken to him at 11:50 and then he didn't wake up.
Yeah. I can't even imagine.
It doesn't make sense.
And that's what I want people to kind of take away from all this is, like I said earlier, it's not always the junkie in the street. It's not always the person doing straight fentanyl or heroin or street drugs. It's as simple as someone going to a party and they're like, hey, let's have a good time.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
And so I don't know, like, this is what I go back and I torture myself because I'm really good at that, by the way. I think, like, did he have anxiety? Is that why he took a Percocet? Because he wanted to just go to sleep?
Right.
You know, you can, like you said, we can torture ourselves with the what ifs.
Right. Yeah, you can play that what if game forever. Like, it's dangerous and it's slippery.
Well, that's the thing about, you know, being transparent on TikTok or any platform, because you do have those people out there that will refer to your child as a junkie, he brought it upon himself, it was his decision. And yes, it was his decision to take a Percocet. Sure. It was not his decision to take fentanyl.
Right.
It's not his decision to go to bed and never wake up. Like, no, yeah. I don't. I agree with you, and I completely believe that there is a huge difference between overdose and poisoning. Huge.
100%. 100%. Like, I live in rural East Texas. The big drug here is meth. We don't see a whole lot of fentanyl here. We see some, but not a whole lot. But working with the people we see in Memphis, all you see is fentanyl. Like, people are not even doing heroin anymore. Like, it's just fentanyl coming out of the dope houses, right? So when somebody overdoses on fentanyl, they have literally overdosed on fentanyl in those situations.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the stats are. Like, I'd have to do some major research on it. My guess is 50% plus are people that are not doing quote unquote street drugs. They're taking a pill, or they've smoked weed that has been bagged up on the same table that some other stuff was, or whatever. You know what I mean? It's not what it's not. Yeah, there's a huge difference between overdosing and poisoning, because overdose is somebody that is doing, to me, it's somebody that is doing fentanyl or heroin or whatever, and they do too much of it, right? And then they pass away. But somebody that's just like, and both of them are tragic. Like, I'm not discounting one over the other. Like, both of them are tragic, but you just cannot even begin to understand until you've gone through it that it's not just the people on the streets that you would normally turn your nose up at. It's literally our kids, our brothers, our sisters popping a pill for a good time. Right, wrong, or indifferent doesn't make it right.
No,
but it's literally that is what's killing these people.
And I feel so sad for, Jack's dad and Jack's sister who he left behind. And it's not just me who's experiencing this tremendous amount of grief, but, I think all of his friends, he had so many friends, and to lose a friend at 19 years old is wrong. They're not supposed to experience such a tragedy in their lives so young. And that makes me equally as sad, because I love my son's friends. Like, they were all like my boys and all like my sons. They lived at my house, and and I hurt for them.
Absolutely. Like Jack, Eric was an extrovert, and Eric's funeral was literally standing room only. Like, there was people out in the hallway and out, like, just everybody showed up from everywhere. And my buddy that lives up the street, he's an older dude, but he was like, he came to the funeral, and after the funeral, he was like, man, like, I have never seen so many people at a funeral in my life. And it was just this really beautiful thing. And even at the graveside, there was a shit ton of people there. And just to know
Brief intermission, I suppose. Are you good? I can't hear you. I know you said you had a hurricane warning, so I'm wondering.
What about now? Can you hear me now?
Now you're good.
I can hear I don't know what happened. Don't touch the mic, Chris. But
Yeah.
like, we're going through all this too, and it's our family or whatever. But like, Eric touched so many lives, and obviously Jack did too. And just to think about, like, I've posted about this on social media that being part of you see it on all the fentanyl memorial wall and fentanyl awareness posts, being part of the Forever Club or whatever, like Forever 32, Forever 19. And you got to think that's one person. So Eric's Forever 32. But because of that, there's hundreds of people that are now part of this club that didn't want to be. So it's not just 100,000 people a year that are dying from it. It's millions of people a year that are being affected from it.
Forever. Will be
forever.
Yes.
And when
we are all forever changed.
Yeah. And when you think about it, like, we tend to look at it from inside our little bubble. Like, that was my brother. That was your son. That was my mom and dad's son. That was, his dad's son. But then you look at all the people whose lives he touched that are forever affected by it too. And it just kind of really, yeah.
I want to, if I can ask, and
yes, please do.
If you don't want to say, then that's fine. I wanted to know how your parents are doing.
Okay-ish. Just okay-ish. Good days and bad days. And they're watching right now because mom's texting me, but yeah, they're doing okay-ish.
Well, you let her know that she can reach out to me anytime.
I will. I sure will.
As I said earlier, I have a daughter. Your parents have you, and we still have so much to live for. But at the same time, I know that it probably hurts you to see your parents hurting.
Yeah, it does.
I feel bad that my own daughter has to see me.
Yeah. It's rough, man, because you want to fix it. They're your parents and you love them.
Yeah.
And it's this weird dynamic of trying to navigate it yourself and also try and figure out how you can be there for them. And you don't know how. Like, I have no freaking clue how. And mom's probably watching this because she is watching. Like, she's watching this right now, probably bawling her eyes out. But like, you don't know how to do it. And my natural inclination as an introvert is just to seclude myself. So I'm either pouring myself into what we're doing with The Raven is Here, or I'm sitting in my house watching Seinfeld reruns, and probably not the best thing to do. I mean, like, I want to be there for my parents, but honestly, I don't know how. You know what I mean? Like, I have no freaking clue how to do it.
Well, I could shed some light on that for you because
please do.
My daughter is my happiest place to be. And you will always be your parents' happy place. There's nothing that will make them happier than just being with you. It doesn't matter what you're doing, because she's the only place I ever want to be sometimes. Because she makes me happy. She makes me happy. And you'll forever make your parents happy.
Yeah.
So that's it. Just sit. Just be with them.
That's how old is your daughter?
She's only 21. She was 17.
So she was younger than Jack.
She had just turned 17.
Okay.
Yep. Fucking sucks.
Yes, it does. I told y'all this was going to be emotional, but it's okay. Like, I'm here for it. Yeah.
I know. I just, like, you sit and just stare. I just stare. I don't, sometimes, like, I'm with someone and they'll say, like, where are you at?
Yeah.
Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I don't know where I am,
Right.
but I'm not present. I'll tell you that.
Right. No, I get it. And it's crazy the amount of people that that I have connected with on, especially on Facebook. That somebody will tag me and be like, "Hey, you need to connect with this person or that person locally that have lost people to fentanyl." There's a girl. So it's kind of a long, convoluted story. One of my best friends, her name is Christy. She about 3 years ago, 2 years ago, she moved to Florida. She has a sister that still lives here. Friended her on Facebook when I got on Facebook. She has a friend who lost her son to fentanyl just over a year ago. And so, like, we connected and we've chatted a little bit in the DMs or whatever. But just like seeing her post, it's just like it's never like it's crazy to see because she works in the car business. So like it's this crazy combination of like car dealership posts and missing her son posts. And I've talked to her about coming on the show. She's not ready to share her story, which is perfectly okay. Like I
It's
totally
gonna
get
be
it. Like,
what?
yeah, like no, nowhere. Like you know what I mean. Like I'm perfectly okay with it. But like I see it, and I'm like, my heart goes out to her, and I just want to. I've never met her in my life,
Yeah.
but I just want to like wrap her up and be like, you know what, I love you, sis. Like
Mm,
that's all I can say. I'm not even going to tell you it's going to be okay because that's the most cliche BS I've ever heard in my life. But I love you, and I've connected
but
with so many people and heard, and I'm sure you have too, heard so many stories of kid everywhere from 2 year olds being in the house with it to
yeah.
older people dying from this stuff, man. Like, and it's just like sometimes I just have to like close Facebook out and not even look at it. You know what I mean?
So here's the big question is well, we can, you and I are on the streets trying to save people, right, from the same pain that we're going through. But
Yeah.
I've been asked so many times in a much larger sense, what can we do to change the situation? I was just reading about the super lab in Canada that was like the biggest bust in history. And, they had manufactured all the precursor chemicals for
Yeah.
fentanyl. I believe they
Yep.
said 95.5 million lethal doses that could have, taken out all of Canada twice over. And I think that, I think to myself, like, that has to make an impact, right? Like, that
Yeah.
has to dent in
Yeah.
some way. But it's so easy to manufacture and so inexpensive to manufacture
Yeah.
that I don't, I don't know
I don't know
what
the answer
will
either.
be.
Um, yeah, like Garrett said, don't stop telling your story. For one thing, I think telling the stories and being so open about it. Like I post a ton about it. Just and even like, people that think Narcan is enabling. I post stuff about how Narcan is not enabling. I post stuff about 100,000 people a year dying. Like, and I think if you're going to do anything about it, it would be one, have the hard freaking conversations with your kids. If you want somebody to have a conversation with them other than you that has lost someone, like I can put you in contact, and I know you can too, with 100 different people that would be willing to tell a story and be like, this is how it happened. Um, Another way I would say you can make a difference is it doesn't matter what organization it is. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter whether it's the Raven. It doesn't matter whether it's Happy Jack's World. It doesn't matter if it's We Fight Monsters. It doesn't. I could name a dozen different organizations right now that are working boots on the ground. They're working on the addict level though. They're not working on the bureaucratic level, or they're working on the, and not necessarily the addict level, but just a grassroots in the streets kind of stuff. Is just get out there and do something. Um, volunteer your time, volunteer your money if you have it. And I know times are tough and everybody's going through it, but there are organizations out there that are literally trying to make a difference.
Yeah.
And you may not be cut out for that. Like you may not be cut out for the boots on the ground kind of stuff, right? And not everybody is. Hell, I wasn't 7 months ago, you know. I've had a lot of conversations with people about this. Is the war on drugs has been a massive failure because it's always focused on putting people in jail instead of trying to get people help, whether it's mental health help or whether it's addiction help or whatever it is. So you have to cut it out. You have to. I firmly believe you have to go from the bottom up. You're never going to do it relying on law, which and they do a great job. They do the best they can with the resources they have. I'm not knocking law enforcement. I'm not knocking DOJ or Border Patrol or any of that kind of stuff. Like I'm not knocking any of the government, but to really make a difference, you've got to instill a heart change in people or instill, get people the help that they need. And to me, that's where the difference is going to be made, is in the nitty gritty part of it.
We
And like you said,
go ahead.
no, I was going to say, like you said, it whether it was mental health stuff, and we can play the what if game on whether he took the Percocets because he was struggling or not. It doesn't matter. Like there's always the drugs are not the problem. The drugs are how the problem presented itself. I went through that kind of stuff whenever I was, in prison, going through all my own drug stuff. The drugs are not the problem. The drugs are how the problem presented itself for whatever reason it was. So if you can get people the help that they need, whether it's addiction or mental health or trauma or whatever, if you can get them the help that they need, you're going to cut off reasons to buy the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my 2 cents. Jamal Marshall, I see you, man. It's good to see you, brother. It's been a while.
I think.
What do you think? What are your thoughts on it after I just went on that total rant?
Are you asking me or are you asking Marshall?
No, I'm asking you.
I think that Jack subscribed to that theory because he donated $1,000 to the Child Mind Institute, a week after his sales. And, we have since, we continued to donate. We've donated hundreds of thousands of dollars at this point to so many different foundations. And we finally set up our own, we have a Happy Jack Foundation. And
I love it.
We were able to run a tremendous billboard in Times Square. We've done amazing work with Z100 and iHeartRadio and the folks over there. And what I will say, and I'm sure you will agree, is that there are so many good people who have allowed my family to, be embraced and supported. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure I would still be standing without those people.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%.
So yes, to the grassroots.
It's a grassroots effort. It's got to be whatever it is, however you approach it. Like it's a grassroots effort. You cannot start from the top down. You have to start from the bottom up and figuring out what the issue is. And sometimes it's just not an issue. Sometimes somebody just makes a dumb decision at a party. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff is going to happen. Like I believe that. But coming from someone who was in addiction, like that was not the problem. That was just how the problem presented itself.
What was you the make problem? Dare I ask?
Don't ask. It's a whole long story.
Okay, pretend I didn't ask.
Yeah, pretend you didn't ask. It's fine.
It's a whole nother show.
It's a whole nother show. Yeah, it's a whole nother show that we don't have time for tonight.
Chris, we're all of us are screwed up. I mean,
I know.
In that, if someone tells you they've got it all together, they're completely lying because,
No, I agree.
no one
And you
is
got,
immune. Every family has their issues.
and if you got to think about it, like honestly, and like we talked about, it's it's not always the addict or the junkie or the person with the needle in their arm. And if it's the biggest killer of people 18 to 45, and even I would venture to say younger than that too, because there's a lot of people in junior high and high school dying from this shit.
Mm-hmm.
You just make dumb decisions sometimes,
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're an addict. It doesn't mean that there's even necessarily a problem. It means you went to a party and something was there and you were like, woo, rock on. You know what I mean?
But I think that's why so many parents and perhaps, even your friend, don't want to talk about it because there is such a stigma attached to it.
There
and
is.
I fully admit that
No,
I
for sure.
I felt that way initially, and I didn't want to tell, people other than my immediate circle what happened. I didn't want my late son to be judged or mislabeled. And the truth of the matter is, it doesn't matter what he was. He's no longer here. So
right.
It's irrelevant at this point. But
it is, and there's always going to be people that are judged, no matter what. Doesn't matter what the circumstances. There's always going to be someone.
Yep. And I guess I feel like at this point in my life that, I'm sure you too, like I've been through so much. I kind of want to say, like, judge me all you want.
Yeah, no, right? Like, judge all you want.
Go nuts.
Right.
It's like, I lost my son.
No, I know. Judge
Yeah.
all you want, think all you want. Like, it doesn't matter. Lace up, strap up. We're going to war over this shit, whether you want, whether you judge or not. Like, we're fighting it. Like, we're going to fight it, and we're going to love people, and that's all you can do. Like, that's really all you can do is love people where they're at. And it sounds so cliche, and I hate even these words are fixing to come out of my mouth, but like, raise awareness, like, tell your story, be real about it, and just be like, have the hard conversations with your kids. Do not take a freaking Tylenol if you have a headache from one of your friends. Don't do it, because you don't know where it came from or what's in it.
Period. End of story.
Period. End of story. Doesn't matter. Unless the bottle says Advil on it and the little pill says Advil on it, like, don't freaking take it. Like, it's just, you just can't do it.
I said that to someone once, if you knew you had a 70% chance after taking that pill, if you knew you had a 70% chance of it dying, would you take it? Those are really not good odds.
No, they're not. And the average person wouldn't.
Right.
I mean, there's always going to be the addicts that do, but like the average person, like Jack and my brother, wouldn't. They'd be like, what the hell? Hell no. Like, no.
Right.
No.
I mean, if it was presented to him like that night,
right,
that way, and I probably wasn't 7 out of 10 back 4.5 years ago, but whatever it was, even if it was 50-50, even if it was 20%.
Right. Right.
He would be like, yeah, dude.
Right. No, I get it. 100%. That's my mom right there.
Aww.
Thank you for sharing from a mommy's heart. I get you.
Oh, I love you.
Yeah. We're like, this has been a great conversation. I don't feel like we've been talking for almost an hour. This has been awesome. If you could leave somebody with one final thought, what would it be?
I would say one day at a time.
Yeah.
For all the grievers in particular, just one day at a time, and then the next. And any more than that is too completely overwhelming.
Yeah.
So,
it's funny you say that. Is in the addiction world, that's like the mantra, is one day at a time.
mm-hmm.
And they say, I can't tell you I won't use tomorrow, but I know today I won't. It's one day at a time. Like, you literally just, how do you eat an elephant? one bite at a time. You just focus on right now. I love that. I love that you said it. Y'all go to happyjackworld.com. Y'all go buy some merch. Help support what Brady's doing to um, honor Jack's legacy. There's some really cool designs there, y'all. Like the sketches and stuff that are on there, like it's really, really cool. I need to go put my money where my mouth is and go do it. But y'all go to happyjackworld.com, get you something very cool to wear. Brady, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. This is yeah. Sometimes it is 1 hour at a time. Like I can vouch for that. Like they're for real, man. Like there's some days like I'll be just sitting in my office. I think about this stuff all the time because of what we're doing, and like my mind like never shuts off until I go to sleep. And even then, sometimes it takes me a little while to go to sleep. But I just think about all of this, and sometimes it really is 1 hour at a time. Sometimes it's really just like, it'll be crazy. I'll be walking through the warehouse at work and it'll hit me, or I'll be working on a report at work or something. It'll hit me and I'll just be like, I have to just take 10 seconds and breathe. Yeah. Just to even continue what I'm doing because I get choked up. You know what I mean? Like I can't even, it's crazy.
I don't know that ever goes away.
Yeah. I don't know that it does either. It's been 4.5 years for you and it hadn't. But I think that's part of what I know it's part of what keeps me motivated. I can't speak for you, but I know it's part of what keeps me motivated, even in the 7 months that it's been, is that.
I would have done anything for Jack while he was here. And I don't feel any differently now that he's gone.
Right. Exactly. Oh, that's good. That is good.
That's just who I am and how much I love, and I feel the same way about my daughter.
Yeah. For sure. Brady, thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
Like, I don't know how I wasn't a blubbering mess the whole time. I'll probably go in there after I go get my dog from my parents and go in the house and just decompress and it'll all hit me. But thank you so much for this. Thank you for being so raw and open and transparent.
Always.
I really appreciate it. Y'all, next week. Whoa, my earbud fell out. Next week, I have Garrett Dietz, the dude on the comment right there. He's got an addiction story too. I haven't heard all of it. In fact, I haven't heard any of it. So this is going to be like a fly by the seat of my pants. Just hearing what he has to say, but he came highly recommended from a friend of mine. So he's going to be on next week. Same time, Monday night at 7:00. You won't want to miss it. I've only got like a couple of weeks left of the season, y'all. Like the end of November is it. The last Monday in November is it. But I have a whole list of amazing guests lined up for after the first of the year. So y'all definitely want to stay tuned. A whole mix of people that were in addiction, in human trafficking, homelessness, some people from the law enforcement side of human trafficking and drug trafficking and all that, just to kind of get a full spectrum of all the things. So yeah, and I appreciate y'all for showing up, man. Like I say this all the time. Like y'all are the reason that we do this. Y'all are the reason I do this. All the love and support, like it's just amazing. Like I'm overwhelmed every single time. So thank y'all so much. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Like if you'd have told me like coming out of prison in 2016 that I'd be on social media and that I would have a support system from people I've never met in real life who are like cheering me on. And I say this all the time, like being on social media, I've pivoted about 3 different times on my reason for being here. It started off electronics recycling, went to live stream production, and now it's, combating homelessness and drug and human trafficking. Like I have had a crazy amount of support and I love each and every one of you for it. So thank you for that. Like it's crazy. Like I've never met most of these people in my life and like they're woohoo, go Chris. Like it's humbling, really. Do you ever
Well,
feel that way? Like whenever
I'm
you,
one of those go Chris people too. So
yeah. Well, thank you.
you know what? I know I sound like very motherly, but I'm really proud of you. And I would say the same thing to my own
Thank you.
child. You know, I think it's
Yeah.
pretty awesome, and I know how hard it is for my own daughter, and I respect that everyone grieves differently, but you've accomplished so much in so little time, and I think it's pretty amazing.
You know, and going back to what I said, I couldn't really do it without the people on social media that support it,
Yeah.
what we're doing. Totally off topic, but totally on topic. Like if you've ever thought about building a brand on social media, this is the reason why you do it, because you never ever know what life's going to throw at you that you need to have. You need to establish yourself as someone, right? So this is just a plug on the side gig of what I do as far as like live stream production and social media management. You never know. So like, it's just, it really does blow me away. Like I think about it a lot. Like it blows me away. So anyway, thanks, Garrett. I appreciate it, man. I cannot wait to sit down with you next week, bro. Cannot. Brady, this has been awesome. Like your family now. Like I absolutely have enjoyed this.
100%.
100%. Yeah.
100%.
So I appreciate you so
I'm going to
much.
sleep. I'm emotionally spent.
Right. I am too. I'm going to go in there and take a shower and be like,
I'm done. This is like the most I've
I'm
talked
done.
in a long time.
Yeah.
So
All right. It's so worth it. Yeah. Thank you so much, y'all. We'll see y'all next week with Garrett Dietz. And let me find my outro clip. Thanks, y'all. Love y'all. We'll see you next week.
Take care.